This is In Conversation With. I'm your host, Jake Fradon-Datti. Today we're talking with Angie Tomey of Little Boy Flowers, about some of the best flowers to be growing this time of year, right? More or less. Hi, Angie.
Thanks, Jake. Welcome, everybody. Nice to be here.
Okay, where are you calling us from?
Well, I'm actually in Santa Cruz right now. It's my boys' spring break, so I'm at my friend's house in La Selva Beach, and we just spent a day at the beach. But normally I'm live on the San Juan Ridge outside of Nevada City. So we have a little farm there, and moved here about 17 years ago to work alongside before he was my husband, but John Tecklin at Mountain Bounty Farm. So that's what brought me to Nevada County. Yeah, so I've been here a while now. Love it. Yeah.
And your business, you have a business, and it's mostly doing cut flowers. And tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so I have a little cut flower business, Little Boy Flowers, that I started after I had my son. Before that, I was working alongside my husband, working for Mountain Bounty Farm. And I always grew cut flowers on the side. I loved flowers. I actually have a background in botany and horticulture. So flowers, the world of flower growing came really naturally. I've allocated about an acre of ground to growing flowers. And I grow for weddings, our CSA, so people can subscribe and get a bouquet every week. I have 3 different options. I do a spring flower share, a summer flower share, and a peony share. And then we're starting to do the farmers market again, the Nevada City Farmers Market, which I actually started 15 years ago with Renette Senham. I did that for years, but after about 5 years ago, I stopped doing it because I was doing so many weddings. So I'm coming back to the farmers market, which has been really nice again to be back there. So looking forward to being there this year every Saturday.
Great. So,
yeah.
I know you have a slideshow, but before we start, I was just wondering how much do you have under cultivation? An acre? How much?
I have an acre. Yeah, it's probably an acre and a quarter, along with my peony field. I have about 1,000 peonies. So and my peony field is separate from the rest of the ground. Yeah.
And you do have a hoop house or a greenhouse as part of it too?
I do. I have a couple different hoop houses. Yeah.
How big is your hoop house, your biggest hoop house?
I have 2 different larger hoop houses that are, they used to be Mountain Bounties, but now I'm using them entirely. So one of them is 200 by 40 feet wide. So pretty big. Yeah. So
are you mostly at the house there then now?
I'm at the home site now. Yep. I do have a little bit of a small patch at the Birchville field, but most of it is at my home site. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's do the slideshow, and just reminder, folks, please, all your questions, just type them in the chat, and then we'll get to them further on. But now we've got a little presentation and some slides.
Okay, I'm gonna share screen here. Okay, so that's my husband, myself, and my son Jude. So that's John, and so he started Mountain Bounty Farm. It's been 27 years, I think, ago. So we grow vegetables for Nevada County, primarily through our CSA program, where people buy shares and get a box of produce every week. And now I'm offering, with Little Boy Flowers, I'm offering a flower option for that. So this is one of our bigger fields at Birchville Road, which was just acquired by the Bear Yuba Land Trust this last year. And so now we have a really nice long-term secure lease at this site. And like I was saying to Jake a moment ago, I do grow a few of my flowers here. I have my spring blooms there right now, and I do my first planting of early summer things, my first round of zinnias and sunflowers and warm season annuals there, because it's a lot warmer than our home site, which is about 10 minutes away. So this is all up on the San Juan Ridge. This is actually on Birchville Road, on the way down to French Corral. So this is one of the temporary hoop houses that we put up for, this is carrots in here, just to get a jump on the season and be able to plant before we would normally be able to plant out in the field. So these we can take down, we put up and take them down every year. These are quite great little structures. So I grow the flowers alongside the veggies. Here, this is our home site, and we have lettuce growing here, and then I have a bunch of perennials on the side. For many years, it's been where I've had to kind of share a lot of space with the Mountain Bounty crew, and just being able to grow little bits here and there, but they primarily were using all of the fields at our home site. But since we acquired that Birchville site, that has changed, and now I am growing more and more of my flowers here at the home site, and they're not using it for many of the vegetables anymore. I grow, like I said, for the CSA. So these are some of my bouquets that go out to CSA members. This is a summer share. So you can see the warm season flowers here, like dahlias and zinnias and gladiolas, lots of grasses, things like that. I also do weddings, which I love. I love the artistic part of doing a wedding. I really enjoy being able to just do more of the design work. I love doing installations and bouquets. It's really fun. So very much enjoy that. And these are just some examples of some of my arrangements. I like the kind of wild, loose look, a little bit more kind of, I don't know, just not tight, but more open and lush. Yeah, so I was saying how I grow in hoop houses. So most of my hoop house growing is this time of year in the spring. I am harvesting a lot of these cool season crops that I plant in the fall. So you can see these girls, they're harvesting poppies. These are Icelandic poppies, and poppies are wonderful, and they do really well in even outside in Nevada County, but you really need to plant them in the fall. And a lot of people kind of don't realize that, oh, you have to plant some flowers in the fall. And it is true. Certain flowers really like to be planted in the fall. So poppies, Icelandic poppies, if you wanted to try out ranunculus or anemones, which are actually little corms that you have to buy, they're little bulbs. But the Icelandic poppies you can often find in 6-packs at stores. But they do really well. But again, you need to plant them in the fall. They need that long growing season of cool growing season. And they can handle being snowed on and all that. So if you plant them in the spring here, a lot of times they don't have quite as many blooms. They don't have time to fully establish. And this is a field of warm season annuals. So zinnias, sunflowers, grasses, amaranth, those kinds of things. Those are things that really can't handle any frost. So, but they do really quite well, just seeded after the last frost date, which is the beginning of May around here usually. I also grow a lot of shrubs. So my fields are all lined with woody shrubs. that I use for branches. So this is quince, and you can see forsythia behind that. I love having, I think having shrubbery and woodies around really enhances your landscape, and it also adds so much to designs to have like these woody elements and to be able to throw in some really lovely branches of, even if they're leafed out branches, like you need greenery in an arrangement. So having some really nice greenery growing in your yard that you can cut and put into your bouquets is a wonderful thing. So one of my favorites here is physocarpus. This is the golden nugget physocarpus, and it flowers like that in the summer, and those are lovely to use. But all year, all summer long, actually it flowers in the spring, and then all summer long, the foliage is lovely and it holds up really well. So it's one of my favorite shrubs. I also grow eucalyptus. You can see the narcissus in front of that, but I have a big hedge of eucalyptus. And amazingly, I mean, I've had really good luck with eucalyptus, even at our home site. So this is the silver dollar eucalyptus, and I seed it. You can grow it from seed pretty darn easily, and it's amazing. I mean, this is like a 4-year-old stand, but I chainsaw it. I cut it all the way back every year, and it just keeps growing. So you just have to be careful because it is super vigorous and slightly scary because it's so, in that it could kind of take over an area, and it also has a lot of alkaloids in the leaves. That's why it has such a strong smell. So you want to make sure you plant eucalyptus away from things that it will inhibit the growth of other things around it, essentially, kind of like an oak tree, how they have tannins in the leaves. So these narcissus do fine just right next to it, but most things wouldn't want to be right next to eucalyptus. So I do use eucalyptus a lot in my bouquets. I have about 1,000 peony plants. Peonies do so well. So peonies are a perennial, like all those shrubs. So you got to we're thinking annuals and perennials. Perennials are really wonderful for the home garden because they come back every year. You don't have to replant them. So some examples of perennials would be peonies, rudbeckias, echinacea, hydrangeas, lavenders, those kinds of things. And there's woody perennials, which are like have more wood to them. And then there's the herbaceous perennials, like a peony that totally dies back. And in the wintertime, you don't see any above ground anything. It just completely dies back to the roots. So, but peonies do excellent in Nevada County. I recommend everybody put in some peonies if you love gardening and you love flowers. Put some peonies in. They love this climate. So this is my peony field. Like I said, I have about 1,000 peonies. I have about 10 different varieties that come in at different times, and they do amazingly well. It's like one of my all-time favorite flowers. Yeah, you can see the girls. So we have one of our fields up above our home site, and it's actually on our friend Steve's property, and that's where our peonies are. And so we have to kind of wheelbarrow them down to our processing area. But peony season is pretty fun. So this is a white swan echinacea. The echinaceas of all sorts do really well. That's an herbaceous perennial that does great, comes back every year, gives you really nice masses of flowers, and it blooms for a really long period of time. Something that will encourage more blooms is if you keep harvesting and don't let the blooms go to seed. When a plant starts setting seed, then it'll start kind of triggering the plant to stop producing flowers. So that's something just to think about. Hydrangeas of all sorts do really well here as well. So this is a limelight hydrangea, and I really like the kind of lighter colors. I don't like those very the blue ones and the bright pink ones so much. So the PG hydrangeas and the limelights are my favorites. And again, this is a perennial, so it's going to come back year after year. It's really nice. It likes a little bit of shade, but it's going to give you some really lovely blooms and kind of all summer, actually. And then in the fall, I'd like to use the dried flower heads in my wreaths and dried arrangements. So yeah. Foxgloves. I love foxgloves. They're also another wonderful flower. It's a perennial as well, so it comes back year after year, and it's going to provide some really lovely spring interest to your garden. So they flower usually right around Mother's Day, May, and they're lovely. If you cut them, they'll keep producing flower. They'll give you a second flush. And they're technically a biennial, but they will self-seed and they'll come back in your garden. Once you have them in the garden, they're usually there. You'll usually continue to have them year after year. So there's lots of varieties of foxglove. This is Apricot Beauty, one of my favorites. But I also really like the Camelot series. Those are lovely as well. Okay, so another perennial I grow a lot of is garden roses. Garden roses are, they do quite well here, and I have experimented with many different varieties. And some of my favorites are Crown Princess. Oh, this is Honey Dijon. I believe it might be even a hybrid tea. Which I don't grow many hybrid tea roses, but this one is incredible. And that gold color is just so great. And it fades into this lovely kind of like super soft, almost cream color as it matures. So Honey Dijon is one of my favorites. This is Crown Princess Margarita. And that is by far my best producing garden rose. So it has that really like big open look to it, unlike a hybrid tea, which is like tighter. So it has that cabbage, it's called a cabbage style rose. And these do so well in my garden. They're just like definitely my favorite. I keep planting more and more and more. They produce all summer long if you keep deadheading the flowers off and harvesting them. So again, you want to keep to get this to keep producing all year, you need to cut it back after the blooms fade, and then you'll get another flush. I usually cut them back, fertilize them, and then I'll get another flush in another 2 months. So I usually get 2 really nice flushes, but usually I'll have roses on this all year. Yeah, irises. I really love having irises around the garden, and I think that's another perennial that would be really useful to have. These bloom around Mother's Day, which always is nice. You can harvest them in bud, and they will open in the vase. A lot of people don't think of bearded irises as a cut flower because they do wilt pretty fast after a couple of days, but they have all these side shoots that will then open up. So they're quite lovely. And I like all the interesting new colors that you can find. And I like to buy my irises from Shriner's Iris. They're up in Washington, I believe, and they have an incredible selection of really interesting kind of heirloom varieties, not just like the standard lavender ones that you see everywhere. Okay, so I think that's all the perennials, and I'm going to get into some annuals that I really like to grow. So this is Nigella. This is a cool season annual. So it will seed in your garden once you have it, and then you'll have it probably forever. It's I wouldn't say it's like super weedy, but it's really good at coming back. Like I have this area in my garden where I have a lot of Nigella, and it just, it's really nice because I never have to worry about seeding it. It keeps coming back. But this is an annual, so it will grow it'll seed throughout the winter, establish itself, and then it will produce these lovely sprays of flowers, and then it produces these interesting seed pods. If you let the seed pods mature, and then they'll reseed into the ground. So I think having nigella in the garden is great. If you don't have it in your garden already, probably maybe this summer you can get some seeds, and then in the fall sprinkle some of the seeds just where you want them, and they will grow. So they are pretty darn easy to grow. I grow a lot of dahlias. That's another annual that I grow a lot of. Dahlias come from tubers, and you can buy them from most garden stores, or if you want some more interesting varieties that aren't available at the garden stores, you can go to these various dahlia breeders like Swan Island. They're up in Washington. Floret has lovely varieties. Gosh, lots of people are selling dahlia tubers these days. Eden Brothers, pretty much all the big bulb suppliers like Burby, and where you would buy tulips and things. So dahlias are a warm season annual, so you're going to need to plant dahlias after the last frost date, which is the beginning of May here. And they require a fair bit of water, and but otherwise they do really well here. You want to have some nice fertile soil for them, and lots of water and sun. But yeah, they're a great cut flower to have. They get nice and tall, so give them space. Sometimes you need to support them. I run strings and fence posts alongside my beds to corral them in. But yeah, I love dahlias. There's so many different interesting kinds. I grow a fair bit of tulips also, which technically they're not really, I guess they are they an annual? It's odd because they're a bulb, right? And so they will come back year after year, but I grow them as an annual. So I will like pull the bulb up and discard the bulb and just grow them like that. I grow them really densely in a bed, but like in the home garden, it's more kind of practical to probably just, grow little patches, but you can grow them. I mean, they essentially say you can plant them shoulder to shoulder. So if you think of a bulb, you put it right next to the other bulb, and they will be fine. They don't need a ton of space. So you can really pack in a lot of tulips into a single bed pretty well. And you don't have to replant them every year, but what happens is the vigor of the bulb will diminish over the course of a couple years, and a lot of times they will just kind of fade out and dissolve into the ground. So you kind of need to replant tulips every year or every couple years. So I just replant every year. Okay, so these are, I don't know why I'm sorry that this picture is in the section of annuals, because this is a perennial. So these are chrysanthemums, and I love chrysanthemums. I grow a ton of them. They bloom when nothing else is blooming. So they bloom the end of October and into November, which is like the dead time for everything else. But the problem with that is that you have to have them under cover for mostly, because they get rained on and frosted otherwise. So, probably not the most practical choice for a home garden unless you're in a warmer area like where Amber Jo lives, or there's some warm little microclimates around Nevada County, and chrysanthemums would probably be fine outside in those areas if you just have better air drainage and it's not such a frosty pocket. But chrysanthemums are really interesting. They come in so many different shapes and sizes, and I just love their interest. So these are all different heirloom varieties of chrysanthemums, kind of more difficult to find these varieties. But King's Mums is a good source there in the Midwest, and they have a ton of different really interesting varieties of chrysanthemums. All right, so back to the summer annuals. So thinking summer color in the garden. So Rudbeckias are those kind of black-eyed Susans that everybody, you know, people call them daisies, but they are wonderful, and there's just such a great flower to have in your garden. Also zinnias are wonderful, but you have to plant them every year because they are an annual. So, but they're easy to seed. You can just buy seeds from most seed sources. I like Johnny's. They have a great selection of all kinds of interesting, beautiful colors of zinnias. And zinnias are really easy to start from seed. But you probably want to start them in trays before putting them out into your garden. If you put the seeds directly into the garden, they tend to get eaten by birds and things. So having a little bit of control and putting them into garden plugs, into little seed trays would be the best way to go with those. I also love sunflowers for the summer garden. They're really easy, and they're super quick, like 50 to 60 days to flower. So from seed to flower, it's about 50 to 60 days. So that's another summer annual that I would definitely grow in your garden. And there's interesting branching types for the home garden that I like. Lemon Ara, the Starburst Lemon Ara, those are super lovely. And the Panache, there's White Night, and White Light, these new varieties. So here's some zinnias here. These are the orange, Bennery's Giant Orange. So this is kind of a better view of my home site. So this is that's our house is just up above this, but that little barn studio, that's kind of where we have our cooler and that's where we do all of our bouquet making and packing. So I also grow lots of grasses. There's some grasses behind me there, but I like having grasses around to add interest to my bouquets, so that it makes them a little bit more wispy and not so just like crowded with flowers. So these are Lisianthus. That's another flower I love to grow. Lisianthus are really hard to start from seed, so probably not such a good option for the home gardener, but for a flower grower who's a little more serious, you can buy plugs of these. Farmer Bailey Plugs sells them by the tray, so you can just buy a tray one at a time. Most plug suppliers, you have to buy four trays of one variety, and that's kind of, that's about 1,000 plants, and most people don't want 1,000 plants. But Farmer Bailey, you can buy one tray. And Lisianthus are so great. They tolerate the heat. I can grow them in the hoop houses in the summer, which is kind of amazing. And they last forever. So I love Lisianthus. So here's some of my bouquets, and you can see some of so these are all warm season annuals in here. So it's the sunflowers and the helichrysum, which is straw flower, zinnias. There's some Queen Anne's lace in there that's gone to seed. There's some millet, some of the purple millet, which I really love. So yeah, I like those colors. These are ranunculus. So these are the ones, I have to seed these in the fall. And these are actually planted by in the corms form. So you buy corms of these, and you can get them from most bulb suppliers where you would buy daffodils or tulips or anything. You can buy ranunculus corms, and they're pretty easy to grow. And they do not need to be in the high tunnel like this in the hoop house. They can be grown outside in pots, and they're a wonderful cut flower. They just really get a lot longer stems for me in the tunnels than they do outside. So yeah, it's just a bucket of ranunculus there. And here's this is back to the poppies, how I was talking about Icelandic poppies. And these do great. These are a wonderful annual, but a cool season annual. Again, you need to plant them in the fall or in the early spring. And again, you don't have to have a hoop house for these. Okay, this is the last slide, and I wanted to just briefly talk about soil here. So the key to growing a successful garden is soil, is learning about what's going on in your soil. And so getting a soil test done is a really, really useful thing to do. Most of the soils in Nevada County are acidic and they need lime added to them. We add lime and soft rock phosphate to most of our fields. Now our phosphorus levels are up enough that we don't have to add soft rock phosphate anymore. And some of our fields, we don't have to add lime anymore, but we always add nitrogen. So our field, nitrogen is something that is, as if you're working your soil very much, it escapes out of the soil. So you have to add it every time you crop something. So
what do you guys use for nitrogen?
So we use feather meal. I really like it. I mean, it's a byproduct of the chicken industry. It's kind of gross to think about, it's ground up chicken feathers, but it is a great slow release nitrogen. So it's not just giving you that hit right at once, but it kind of, it'll release over a longer period of time. And we also apply compost always to our fields. So always adding compost for organic matter and just also for kind of bringing in more biological activity from elsewhere. So you're just getting more, it's not so high in nitrogen, but it's higher in there's lots of micronutrients and things in compost that you just need. So, yeah, and I also spray compost tea and fish and kelp on my flowers. So, yeah, before they're blooming, I will spray. After they're blooming, it's kind of usually too late, except for the dahlias, which bloom over a long period of time. My dahlias start flowering in late June, and they go through October, but I have to fertilize them every couple weeks. So, yeah, I think getting a soil test done is a really good thing because then you feel like you know what your soil needs. But again, most soils in Nevada County need lime added and phosphate. So those two, if you haven't had a soil test this year and you want to start a garden, I would get a little bit of lime, a little bit of phosphate. You can get dolomite lime or you can get oyster shell lime. And for phosphorus, you can get bone meal or you can get soft rock phosphate. Both of those sources are really good. Yeah.
Okay, should we do some questions here? Great slideshow, Angie.
Oh, good.
That was
okay.
What a wonderful job you have. Gosh, we should all start flower farms. It looks like so much fun.
There is a trend of that. Lots of people starting flower farms, so it's kind of cool. Yeah, it is I feel so lucky. I love what I do. It's just, yeah. I'm often like, oh my God, like I'm just the luckiest person in the world.
And
yeah.
it makes your house so beautiful too. And you're living in a Dutch flower field or something over there.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah. It's great. It's so much fun. Yeah.
Okay, let's do some questions here.
Yeah, questions.
Hindu saw your carrots and wanted to know if you guys sieve the soil when planting carrots.
If we what?
Sieve the soil.
Seed it.
Sieve it. No, like.
Sieve it.
Yeah.
No.
Clean it. Because she said she gets a lot of misshapen carrots.
Yeah, that is an issue. But that particular site where we grow the carrots, I mean, the soil is so good. It's like, it's a beautiful loamy soil, but it's a little on the sandier side than some of the soils. A lot of foothill soils are really dense, right? So you're going to have a lot of clay and rocks. Definitely you want to make sure you have minimal rocks and clay and maybe a raised bed or something for the carrots, because they will get misshapen if they encounter a rock or a big clod. They'll just start growing all wacky. So that Yeah. So that is something to consider, but we don't have to do that. I mean, we do till our soil. So we are, we go through in the spring when the cover crop, when it's time to prep our fields, which are all planted in cover crop in the winter. We go through, we mow, and then we do a very shallow till. And then we will come through with a ripper and rip the soil deep. So it's like a tool that goes down and kind of like a deep plow, and then we'll add all the amendments, and then we'll do another final shallow till. So yeah, I mean, after all of that, there is things. And we've been working the ground for a long time. So you should see these piles of rocks that we've pulled out of our field. It's kind of amazing. Yeah, we could build a house.
Okay, Anna Marie and Rachel want you to explain the purchase of the farm by the Bear River Land Trust.
Yeah. So so we have 2 sites where we've been farming. Where we initially started is on the San Juan Ridge on our friend Steve Beckwith's property. And that was where Mountain Bounty started 27 years ago. And about 15 years ago, my husband and I bought the adjoining property to that and moved a bunch of our fields there. After that, we were able to acquire and lease this property on Birchville Road that was owned by this old man that we got to know. And it was just this amazing field. And John had been looking at this field forever and finally was able to convince Howard Miser to lease us this property. He died and his kids inherited it and did not continue being super excited about us of being there. And we're threatening to sell the property. In the course of us farming there, I think we were farming there about 7 years before Howard died. We had drilled a well, we'd put in probably $80,000 of infrastructure in that field. And about 80% of our production moved over there because it was so superior to the growing at our home site. And it was just a real big dilemma for us because it was a super insecure situation. So John, the kids wanted to sell it and were asking like extraordinary amount of money. I mean, John hired a lawyer and he hired a realtor to come we offered them the going rate, but they wanted like twice as much as it was really valued at. And so it was a bit of a conundrum because we're farming, but we have no security over there. So he called the Bear River Land Trust and walked around with them. And over the course of a year of negotiating with them and trying to figure it out, they decided to try to buy it and start this program called Forever Farms, where they are now going to be doing this for other farms, of helping farms secure farmland so that it is always going to be it's in a conservation easement, and it will, I'm not sure if it's in conservation easement, but it is, and it's being held in as a farm forever. So even after Mountain Bounty's gone, it's going to continue to be farmed. So, and it's owned by the Bear River Land Trust. So it's wonderful. And it's great. It's great for us. So now that's why we're moving a lot of our home site stuff over to the Birchville field. Now that we have a secure lease over there, we're able to invest in more infrastructure and building a greenhouse. And it's really great.
Great. So, wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. Jennifer wants to know, what is that summer flowering shrub you showed? Spiced?
Okay.
RC?
Yeah, that's Physocarpus. So Physocarpus. Physocarpus, the common name is 9-bark. And that is, there's 4 or 5 different 9-barks. That one is called Golden Nugget. And that is a really beautiful yellow color. The Diablo is also beautiful. That's reddish mahogany color. So does Anne Marie have some Physocarpus over there? Yeah, I love it. It's a great plant. It's really also pretty darn hardy and drought tolerant. So it doesn't require a ton of water. There's actually a native Physocarpus here. So the Western Physocarpus you can see growing in the River Canyon in some areas. So yeah,
Okay,
I highly recommend it.
we're going to run out of time here. I want to get to this very important question.
Okay.
Is your entire gardening area fenced? So since so many of these flowers are deer attractive,
yeah,
they love tulips. Are any of these flowers you've shown us today not of interest to deer?
Peonies. Deer do not like peonies.
Okay.
I have a bunch of peonies out. I have a couple of garden beds outside that daffodils and narcissus, which there are so many cool kinds of narcissus now. So narcissus, most people think of as like little paper whites, but actually narcissus is the genus of all daffodils. So, and there are so many different kinds of really interesting varieties of daffodils. And so they don't get eaten by deer. Peonies don't get eaten by deer. Let's see, what else? I think everything else does. Lavender. I mean, I grow lavender and rosemary outside along the fences so that, they look pretty, but yeah, they don't like any of that stuff. But.
Okay, another question here. I'm looking for long-stemmed Alstroemeria.
Alstroemeria,
Yeah, do you know a source?
Okay. Yeah, so Alstroemeria are a little dicey in our area. They like it in Santa Cruz, they like it in the Bay Area, but they're not very cold hardy. If you're in a warm zone, like French Corral or some warm little microclimate in Nevada County, you might be able to grow Alstroemeria successfully. I don't grow it. I just find that it doesn't do that well and it's not worth it. But if you have we're just in a cold hole, so where we live. I bet at the Birchville site, Alstroemeria would do fine. So I would give it a try if you have a little warm microclimate. Yeah.
Okay, last question here.
Okay.
I had a Daphne very near an oak tree and it died. Is the oak tannin a deterrent to the Daphne?
Yeah. Yeah. So the Daphne is a little tricky with where they want to be. They like a lot of drainage. I actually have a Daphne that's near-ish an oak tree because I have an oak tree that's kind of above my garden in front of my house. And it's doing okay, but I had 2 other ones die in that area. So I don't know what's different with that. But Daphnes are just tricky. They need, if they don't like where they are, they just they're not going to do it for you. They are not vigorous until they're happy. Once they're happy, then they're stoked and they're just going to be there forever. So it's really a drainage thing I've found with Daphnes. And Daphne is a wonderful plant to have. Oh my gosh, I love it so much.
What about hydrangea? Would that be okay under an oak tree?
Yeah, hydrangeas do really well under oak trees. Lilacs do really well under oak trees. Viburnums, yeah. So there are things that do well under oak trees, yeah.
Okay, let's wrap it up. That's 45 minutes. Thank you so much, Angie. That was really great and fascinating. And I think I'm going to just have you over to my place and get some advice from you directly on some landscaping. Yeah.
Sounds good.
I learned a lot personally. I hope everybody else did.
Good.
Again, next week, we're going to be talking with the Hill Witches and Steve about cancer and medical marijuana. Hope to see everybody there. Thank you to Conrad, Melissa, Cameron, Amber, Joe, and of course, Angie. I'm Jake. I'll see you next week. Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.